Welcome back. So last time out, I tackled a subject I hadn't done in a while, killer B-sides, and it made me realize another subject I haven't done in quite a while is great cover songs. And the first one I'm going to talk about today is one that I can't believe didn't make any of my earlier cover song videos, because this is often considered one of the greatest covers of all time. Let's jump right into it.
Well, shake it up, baby, now. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout. Twist and shout. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now. Come on, baby. Come on and work it on out.
The Beatles have never really been known for doing covers, although they did quite a few on their first few albums. But as soon as the band began to hit its stride, they actually became the group that normalized the idea of rock bands being self-contained and writing pretty much all of their own material. But Twist and Shout is a glaring exception. The closing track from the Beatles' debut album, Please Please Me, an album that was recorded essentially live in a day-long marathon session that took place on February 11th, 1963. The group had initially booked a morning and afternoon session, but added an evening session at the last minute to finish things up. So around 10 p.m., when the studio was supposed to be closing for the evening, they decided to do Twist and Shout. Remember, this was long before the rock and roll days of long drug-fueled recording sessions that went into the wee hours of the morning. EMI Studios was a very conservative place, known mostly for doing classical music, and the technicians literally walked around wearing white lab coats. John Lennon, who of course provides the iconic vocal on this one, had showed up to the session with a very bad cold, had sung all day long, but still jumped in with both feet for one final performance on this day. And I think his being sick was one of those happy accidents. You can hear it in his voice, not only on this tune, but throughout the album. But it sounds cool. It makes his voice sound very unique.
Well, shake it up, baby, now. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout. Twist and shout. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby, now. Come on, baby. Come on and work it on out.
Lennon later admitted to feeling somewhat embarrassed about the vocal, which is crazy because it's so great. But I think I can understand it. Singing is a very personal thing. And when a vocal is that open and raw and emotional, it really is opening up your innermost feelings to the world. Claire Torrey, who did that incredible female vocal on Pink Floyd's Great Gig in the Sky, said more or less the same thing. It truly is a feeling of vulnerability. When asked years later about the primal scream vocals that he incorporated on his 1970 solo album Plastic Ono Band, Lennon pointed out that it really wasn't such a huge leap from Twist and Shout to something like Well, Well, Well from that album.
Well, well, well. Oh, well. Well, well, well. Oh, well.
Now, I suspect most of you are thinking to yourselves that the original version of Twist and Shout is the one by the Isley Brothers, released in 1962. That's also a great version, although I think I prefer the Beatles a little bit. I love the fact that they picked up the tempo. It's a bit more rock and roll. The Isley Brothers is more relaxed, also with a great vocal, perhaps a bit more controlled than Lennon's.
Twist and shout.
But guess what? The Isley Brothers were not the original artists on this one. The tune was written by Phil Medley and Bert Burns, and the first recording was released in 1961 by a group called the Top Notes. That version failed to chart, which is probably why most of us have never heard of it. It's okay, definitely quite a bit different than either the Isley Brothers or the Beatles version. So all three versions are essentially 1-4-5s. This one's in C, C, F, G. Here's the interesting part. They moved to A minor, the relative minor key for this little bridge. This part doesn't exist in either of the other versions. I'm actually not a big fan of that part. I think it kind of interrupts the flow. Meanwhile, the Isley Brothers' great innovation, which the Beatles wisely picked up on, is that little vocal break, that four-note ascending line in which the voices spell out a dominant seventh arpeggio, the 5 chord of the key, which leads back to the 1. In the case of the Beatles, they're in the key of D, so the voices spell out an A7 arpeggio. A, C sharp, E, G, and it builds and leads back to the 1 chord. Respect has the distinction of having been recorded by 2 of the greatest R&B singers of all time. You've got the 1965 version by Otis Redding, and of course, Aretha Franklin's 1967 version, which we just now heard. Of course, Otis's version is great.
What you want, honey, you got it. And what you need, baby, you got it. All I'm asking for a little respect when I come home.
But when Aretha tackled this one, the song took on a whole new meaning, both musically and lyrically. We could even say culturally, as it quickly became a feminist anthem. Traditionally, when a woman would cover a song written by a man, maybe they would change the word girl to boy, and that was about it. But there's a lot more going on here. In Redding's original, the relationship portrayed is very, shall we say, transactional. He's the breadwinner who goes out to work all day, and when he brings home the bacon, he demands respect and attention. We get the feeling he's referring mostly to sexual attention. The craziest is verse 2, in which we get, "You can do me wrong, honey, if you wanna, but only do me wrong, honey, while I'm gone. All I'm asking is give it when I come home." Wow, this really does sound a bit like prostitution. By the way, I should mention that while Redding gets sole songwriting credit for this one, the genesis of the song came from a group called the Singing Demons, who came up with some form of it and had intended to record it themselves but couldn't come up with anything suitable. So a guy called Earl Speedo Sims from that band took it to Otis, who rewrote the lyrics and sped up the tempo. It'd be interesting to see how much he changed here. I love that when you listen to the 2 versions back to back, Aretha's seems to be answering Otis's at times. She starts off by saying, "All I'm asking for is a little respect when you get home. And in spite of the fact that Otis seems to have given her permission to mess around with whoever she wants, as long as he doesn't have to see it, she makes it clear that I ain't gonna do you no wrong while you're gone. I ain't gonna do you wrong because I don't wanna. Musically, I think Aretha's version is superior in every way. Obviously, Otis Redding is a great singer, but Aretha's voice just jumps out of the grooves here. It's a force of nature. I like the intro, those very simple but effective guitar licks. The progression is very simple. It's a G mixolydian thing. G7, F7, C7. One thing I love is the little key change going into the sax solo. From the F7, we unexpectedly pop up a half step to F sharp minor, and then to B. So that feels like F sharp Dorian there. Back to F sharp, and then to G7. And we're ready for our next verse. So it's a brief interlude, but a nice change. Another element which really helps put this version over the top is those great sort of playful backing vocals, provided, by the way, by Aretha's sisters, Carolyn and Irma. They seem to support her every step of the way. Love that. Sock it to me. That's a little piece of late 60s, early 70s slang that you really don't hear anymore, do you? But trust me, it was big at the time, and this song had a great deal to do with popularizing it. And finally, maybe the biggest hook of all, that dramatic pause where Aretha spells out the word R-E-S-P-E-C-T, which, according to producer Tom Dowd, was Sister Carolyn's idea.
Just a little bit. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Take F-T-C-T.
It just goes to show that most great songs are truly group efforts. Otis, of course, had not included this bit, but later incorporated it in his live performances.
And every step I take reminds me of just how we used to be. Oh, how can I forget you, girl? And there is always something there to remind me. Always something there to remind me.
When I was a teenager back in 1983, seeing the Naked Eyes version of Always Something There to Remind Me about once an hour on MTV, I had no idea it was written by the legendary songwriting duo of Burt Bacharach and Hal David. But then again, when I was a younger kid in the late 60s and early 70s, I also had no idea that a huge percentage of the hit songs I was hearing on the radio then were also written by them. Walk On By from Dionne Warwick, This Guy's in Love with You from Herb Alpert, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head from B.J. Thomas. The list was endless, but that's the way it is with Burt and Hal. They were the soundtrack of our lives, but many of us didn't know it at first. Those of you that have watched my channel for a while may know that I'm a huge fan of Burt Bacharach and Hal David. In fact, I did an entire video on them a while back. Check it out if you're interested. Like most of their songs, this one has a long history of being performed by many great artists. The first recording was a demo by Dionne Warwick, recorded in 1963.
And every step I take recalls how much in love we used to be. Oh, how can I forget you when there is always something there to remind me? Always something there to remind me.
Of all the countless artists that have recorded Bacharach and David's material over the years, you'd have to say that Dionne Warwick was his go-to artist. Something about her voice and those songs just blend so well. Now, the first artist to actually chart with this song was a guy named Lou Johnson, who got to number 49 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1964.
I walk along the city streets you used to walk along with me.
Both the Dionne Warwick and Lou Johnson versions we've just heard have several of the Burt Bacharach musical fingerprints on them. The light shuffling rhythm, the little trumpet riff in the beginning, or maybe it's a cornet. Someone once corrected me on that. And to be honest, horns are not my strong suit. Yet another version followed soon after, this one by British pop singer Sandie Shaw. She had performed it on the popular British TV show Ready, Steady, Go, and then it was rush released in September of '64, and this version made it to number 1 in the UK. Now, this version is also the one that's included on this Bacharach collection that I own, the Look of Love Burt Bacharach collection. It pretty much has just about everything you would want. So I guess we can assume Burt was a fan of the Sandie Shaw version.
I walk along the city streets you used to walk along with me, and every step I take recalls how much in love we used to be. Oh, how can I forget you?
But have you noticed something? All three versions we've heard so far are actually quite similar, very typical Bacharach arrangements. Nothing too out of the ordinary. And of course, there were many other versions over the years. The Carpenters did it, for example, on their 1971 Carpenters album as part of a Bacharach medley. But it would be a full 20 years, 1983, when the Naked Eyes version would appear, which was truly a reimagining of the song. I love the intro to this version. It's a totally new innovation for the tune. In the music video that goes along with it, Naked Eyes singer Pete Byrne is sort of lurking in the shadows, watching a wedding take place. The girl is obviously an ex of his, the one who he's singing about in the lyrics. And musically, we hear some great 80s synth strings and what sounds like a cacophony of church bells. Very cool. And we have to talk a little bit more about the over-the-top 80s production. This one has pretty much all the cliches, what someone called the bells and whistles of the typical 80s pop production. Very synth poppy, and those drums, that snare drum, it sounds like banging on a garbage can or an aluminum pie tin. I'm not sure why everybody wanted that snare, but that was the reality. Somehow it kind of works here, though.
Free, you'll always be a part of me, 'cause there is always something there to remind me. Always something there to remind me.
We talked about the snare drum, but what about those tom fills? Brat-a-tat, brat-a-tat-tat. It's a very active part. I love it. Almost Keith Moon-like in a weird 80s fake drum sort of way. I also like the prominent synth bass line they've added at the end of the chorus.
I was born to love her, and I will never be free. You'll always be a part of me.
Harmonically, this one is not nearly as complicated as some Bacharach tunes. Things like One Less Bell which is loaded with modulations and altered chords. But Bacharach's stuff is always clever and interesting. This one makes use of that descending bass line thing common in so much pop music. Key of D major, and then we get A with a C sharp bass, C, G but with a B bass, and then B flat major. Did you catch the bass line? D, C sharp, down, down, descending chromatically. I walk along these city streets you used to walk along with me. That last note there is very cool. Over the B flat chord, he sings an E note. That's a sharp 4. So it implies a B major chord with a sharp 4, or sometimes called a sharp 11. That's a Lydian feel. So again, even in his simpler stuff, there's always something interesting going on. This version was a big hit, reaching number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100. And incidentally, Burt Bacharach himself, on at least one occasion, listed this as his all-time favorite version of the song. So how's that for a seal of approval? And a fun little piece of trivia, apparently Peter Byrne tracked his vocal on September 1st, 1982 at Abbey Road Studios. Now, many of you will know Abbey Road Studios is EMI Studios, which was referenced in the Beatles segment. Once the Beatles shot their famous Abbey Road album cover on the street just outside the studios, it's been more or less known as Abbey Road ever since. But apparently there was a party going on that evening downstairs, and Byrne went down, engaged in the festivities. Paul McCartney was there. And afterwards, he went back upstairs. It was around 1 a.m. and decided to give the vocal a whirl. Supposedly, he nailed it on the first take. And I think it's kind of funny. Again, this is long past the days when the sessions were expected to end at 10 p.m. like it was in the Beatles days. All right, so I think I'm going to leave it there for now. It's been fun doing another cover song video. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love to get the growth of the channel going again. And of course, financial contributions are welcome. You can find several methods in the description of the video. See you next time.